Tim is an astronaut. If somebody don't know him, he's an astronaut. Tell us, when did you go to space? What did you
Sure,
do?
yes. I'm an astronaut with the European Space Agency, and I launched to space in December 2015, and I spent 6 months living and working on the International Space Station.
A long time.
A long time, yes, but we tend to do, all of our missions these days tend to be about 6 months long now.
Yeah. First question, so you were there for 6 months, and what did you miss the most from Earth? But maybe not like a shower or something, something deeper.
Yeah, I mean, friends and family is clearly you're going to miss friends and family, but I think actually the one thing I missed over a longer period of time was the outdoors and fresh air, which kind of sounds obvious, but living in a confined space wasn't a problem for me, and clearly most astronauts, you know, you don't want to suffer from claustrophobia. And we do a lot of things like caving and diving, so you're used to working in confined spaces. But I love the outdoors, I love hill walking, I love, you know, adventurous activities, and I really after 6 months without any kind of fresh air or without feeling any weather, I was longing to get into nature and get back to the outdoors.
Right. Did you go out there for a spacewalk?
I did do a spacewalk, yes. Yeah.
So was that some relief? Was that this, you know, a little touch of free space and air? Or
yeah,
not?
it's interesting. It didn't feel like it in terms of because obviously in a space suit you feel just as confined in a space suit as you do in the space station. But actually outside with the view of Earth and the universe from a spacewalk was absolutely incredible. It was far more powerful than I expected. By that stage, I'd only been in space for about a month, but I still was very used to looking out the windows and seeing Earth and seeing the stars and seeing the universe. But to experience it from the freedom of a spacesuit outside the space station was simply incredible.
It's amazing. I've seen something like this, a little bit of touch of this, in a VR.
Yeah.
VR headset. I walk out of the ESS and there was the Soyuz, yes, and it was enormous. It was bigger than I can imagine. You don't have this perspective when you look at the photos, for example.
Yeah.
What do you miss the most after returning from the ESS station?
Really, the thing you miss the most is definitely the view of Earth from space. It's simply incredible, and I think that's the most privileged thing is to be in space, is to be able to look back on planet Earth and see how beautiful it is. I also miss weightlessness. It's an incredibly fun environment to live and work in as well, and it's a great experience just living each day on the space station. Very busy, lots of science experiments going on. It's a brilliant place to live and work, so I miss that whole environment.
Okay, and what did you feel exactly like, you know, the feelings during the start? When the, you know, the G-forces are building up, and what does the astronaut feel then?
Yeah, I mean, launching to space on a rocket is probably the most exciting, one of the most exciting phases of the mission. It's a big bomb, but it goes off in a controlled way. You don't actually feel, when you leave the launch pad, you don't know. There's so much noise and vibration, you don't even realize you've launched. It's just that the clock is running, so you know you have. Right. And then the acceleration builds up and builds up. I actually thought the most exciting part of the whole launch was the final 4 minutes, and that was when just the third stage is left. By this time you've left the Earth's atmosphere, you're in space.
Floating?
No, it's not floating because you're still accelerating.
Wow, yeah.
You're in the final 4 minutes of launch, but you're horizontal, you've made it to space, you're now trying to get to 25 times the speed of sound, and the acceleration is phenomenal. And you're pushed back into your seats up to 4 Gs of acceleration, just thinking how much longer can this go on for? And at that stage you can actually see out the window as well. And actually it's a very peaceful, being in space is very calm and very peaceful as well, because when you're on the space station you don't, there's no engine noise, you know, you've got the noise of fans circulating the air around. But unlike in any other vehicle where you're conscious of being propelled by an engine, the space station, of course, is just floating in an orbit. And so it's very graceful, very peaceful, very calm environment.
All right. Second question. How long it took you to get back to your physical fitness after return to Earth?
I felt I was back to normal after about 2 months.
Oh my God, it's a long time.
It's a long time. My flight surgeons would have said 6 months. For every day you spend in space, you probably need a day to recover.
And what about the smell? Because you've said you can't just open the door, open the window, just get some fresh air. What was the smell when you first entered the space station?
Yeah, the smell is not bad, which is surprising. You'd think, okay, it's been up there for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the things we have to do is
old wardrobe.
It's an old wardrobe, and we also have to exercise for 2 hours every day. So, you know, you've had people sweating up there for 20 years, but it doesn't smell bad. It actually smells very clinical, and that's because we have some great filtration systems. The air is always purified, cleaned, filtered, and we do replenish the atmosphere from time to time. We're introducing new gases into the atmosphere. So it smells almost like walking into a clinical environment, a medical laboratory, for example.
All right, so this may be a difficult question because a lot of people nowadays is in denial of science, of everything, and for example they're saying that ESS doesn't give us anything. So what is your answer to that, and what ESS gave us?
Yeah, well, clearly I don't agree with that. The International Space Station and space exploration in general has given us many things. You can answer the question on many different levels. Firstly, if you want to just go into pure economics, then every European member state gets about a 2-for-1 return for every euro they invest in space exploration. So the pure economics make sense in terms of exactly in terms of jobs, in terms of the economy, and then you can look at it from a scientific point of view, in terms of the benefits of the cutting edge technologies we're developing in space, things like material sciences, new alloys, new metal alloys that are lighter and stronger we can use in our aircraft engines, which are one of the greatest polluters here on Earth. So if we can make aircraft engines more efficient, burn less fuel, it's good for the environment. Medical pharmaceuticals, we can do things like growing protein crystals in space that you simply cannot grow here on Earth. So if you take a disease-causing protein like motor neurone disease, you grow the crystal in space, you bring that crystal back, you can develop a drug that is perfect with very few side effects, which means you can give low dosages with great results. So these are fantastic benefits from space research. So it's up in space. People think that we're just spending money in space for space exploration. We're not. We're spending money in space for the benefit of people on Earth.
Of course. Have you seen anything what happened on the Earth's surface, like an explosion, fire, volcano or something like that?
Volcanoes, a lot of, more than I expected. What was really surprising is like having a little secret, because occasionally you'd be coming over Kamchatka and you'd see a volcanic eruption and you realize that in somewhere as isolated as that, probably no one else on the planet even realizes that volcano's erupting at that time. Mount Etna was used to smoke away quite a lot, so I loved coming over Sicily, Italy, and just seeing the smoke trail of Mount Etna.
This is a funny one. Is there a smoking room on ISS?
A smoking room? No smoking on board the ISS.
Does astronauts smoke even, or it's forbidden?
I don't know of any. I don't know of any astronaut or cosmonaut that smokes.
You just go behind the corner and there is Sergey, what you're doing? Okay, so maybe this one. What was the most dangerous thing that you had to do during your mission?
Well, there are three. I think there are probably three phases that are high risk: launch, re-entry, and spacewalking are probably the highest risk activities. If I had to nail it down to one, probably spacewalking is where you are really reliant on just yourself, your other crew member, and you really have to be very good at what you're doing. It's a very high-risk environment. But we also had a problem during docking as well, which was quite a difficult scenario. In difficult lighting conditions, under manual control, we'd had an automatic failure, so Yuri had to fly the spacecraft in manually. But of course, that's what we train for. That's why we train so hard.
Is there a vertigo, you know, when you walk out of the International Space Station? Or
so it was interesting.
How does it work?
I didn't feel vertigo when I came out the space station, and I'd been out the door for about an hour and a half, and we were coming back from the furthest edge of the space station. And there's a shortcut that we can take from the big truss section on the space station to the airlock. And I had to go back to the airlock to take this failed unit back in. And I was halfway along this thin metal pole. And I looked down and there was Australia beneath me, and for the first time I kind of felt a little bit of it, gripped a little bit tighter onto the pole. but
Okay.
it took me by surprise.
All right. What do you like the most in you know, the floating around the space station in 0G? And do you miss it?
I do miss it, yeah. I do miss it because it's just great fun.
You dream of flying or something like that?
It's brilliant, and you can move so quickly, and you can be so efficient in weightlessness. You know, one little push off here, and you can float the whole way down the space station.
Did you leave the glasses on the return here on Earth?
So, oh yeah. Well, I actually didn't do that with. If anything, I gripped them tighter, because I was so conscious of things weighing a lot.
Right.
Somebody handed me an iPad when I first got back, and gosh, I felt like a brick. I couldn't believe how heavy it was.
Do you think that someday in the past on Mars there could be a civilization like here on Earth or something like that?
In the past on Mars?
It's a far past.
I think if there had been, we would have probably found traces of it from our current and previous rover exploration and satellite missions to Mars. But I do think it's exciting, and I do think that we could find signs of past microbial life forms, single-celled life forms, bacteria, for example. That's what we're looking for in our Curiosity rover, the ExoMars mission as well in 2020. They're all looking for these signs of life, past or present.
Okay, so one of the last questions. You are just put together with some people on a closed area for 6 months. There must be some misunderstandings and such thing, and you are trained to deal with it, of course. But how do you deal with it? And yeah.
Do you know, in all honesty,
and do you have some free time? Because this is the second part of the question.
So, in all honesty, there are very, very few cases that I've heard of where crews have really disagreed. And in my 6-month mission, we had no instances of any disagreements. And that comes down to a number of things. Firstly is, of course, we're trained for it. So, for example, I'd spent 12 days living underwater on a mission with colleagues and astronauts, spent 7 nights in a cave living with fellow astronauts, and we're trained and taught about how to recognize our own feelings and symptoms of when we're stressed and how we express that, and also in other people. So we're very, very good at working together. But the space station, we spend a lot of our time working by ourselves. You're 6 individuals up there. Everyone's busy doing lots and lots of tasks each day. Sometimes you might have to work as a pair on a very challenging experiment, but most of the time you work by yourself. So if anything, come lunchtime in the evenings, you actually crave a little bit of social interaction. So you get around a table, you talk about your day, you talk about the following week, and it's all a very positive experience. There's very little opportunity to actually get on each other's nerves because you're not actually working together that much.
Right, so there's a special dynamics, I think, between you, because you train a lot of time
you train a lot together, so by the time you go into space, you know each other pretty well, and you understand how each other works.
And what about the free time?
Free time, yeah. So Monday to Friday, there is really very little free time. It's 7 in the morning to 7 at night, and outside of those times, we're either sleeping or preparing for the next day's work. So the only free time we might get are the weekends, but the weekends also we have to clean the whole space station. The weekends is when we do our...
Just like home.
Just like home, get the vacuum cleaner out, wet wipes, and clean it all. We do all of our education outreach programs, so I would spend Saturday afternoons doing lots of educational programs, and then Sunday you might call the family, you might have a couple of other conferences, and then you might get some free time on a Sunday. I would spend most of my free time taking photos.
I think when you are there just for 6 months, because it's just for 6 months, the whole experience is so big that 6 months is not much time, you know. You want to get everything of it.
Yes, and I certainly, 6 months I think is, I could have stayed up longer, but it's also long enough to really fully adapt to space, and you get to really appreciate and understand your environment, which is wonderful. So it's a really great time to be out there.
Okay, so thank you very much for your answers, and I think our viewers are very satisfied. So good luck for you.
Thanks very much.